There is a small creature waiting in the long grass at the edge of your yard right now. It is no bigger than the head of a pin if it is a young one, no bigger than a sesame seed if it is grown. It does not move much. It just sits there at the tip of a blade of grass with its little front legs held out, and it waits. It waits for a warm body to walk past so it can grab hold. And once it is on you, it climbs. Up the sock, up the calf, up to the back of the knee, or the inside of the thigh, or that soft place behind the ear where the skin is thin. And there it bites, and there it stays, drinking for days at a time. And what it leaves behind in your blood can change your life. That is a tick, and the children we used to send running through the tall grass without a second thought, we cannot send them the way we used to. Lyme disease is now in every single state in this country. The cases reported to the doctors have tripled in the last 15 years, and the real number is many times higher than that, because most cases never get reported at all. And there is a newer one I want you to know about, called alpha-gal syndrome, that the lone star tick carries, and one bite of it can leave a person allergic to all red meat and all dairy for the rest of their life. There are near 450,000 suspected cases of it in this country already. That is not fear-talking. That is the plain truth of what is sitting out in the grass. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish, and I farm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. My grandchildren run through this same farm and these same woods that I ran through as a boy, and the ticks are worse now than they have ever been in my whole lifetime. Today I'm going to walk you through 4 things you can do this week, none of them costly, all of them safe enough that I use them on my own ground around my own family, that will drive the ticks out of your yard and keep them off your skin. And I will be honest with you the whole way, the way I always am, including telling you what the chemicals folks reach for first will do, and which one you must never use if you have a cat in the household. Stay with me. By the end, you will have a real plan, and you will have it for less than you spend on lunch. Let me first tell you a thing that surprised even me when I learned it, because once you know it, you understand the whole game. Ticks do not live in your lawn. Not really. The neat trimmed grass of your yard is not where they wait. They live in the leaf litter, the loose, damp, decomposing leaves under the bushes and along the fence lines. They live in the shaded edges where the woods meet the yard, in the tall weedy patch behind the woodpile, in the unmown strip along the back fence. The boundary between your yard and the wild, that is where they sit and wait. Mowing your lawn does almost nothing for ticks. You can mow it to a green carpet, and they are still sitting 12 feet away in the leaves under your forsythia bush, ready to ride a passing dog or a passing child right into the middle of your tidy lawn. So the trick is to treat the edges, not the middle. Most folks have this exactly backwards. So once you know where they live, you know where to fight them. And the weapon that honestly works, the one I am about to walk you through, is one of the oldest tools the old farmers ever had: cedar. You know what cedar smells like. You have smelled an old cedar chest, or a cedar closet, or a cedar fence post that has stood in the ground 20 years and still has not rotted. And the reason cedar wood lasts where other wood fails is the very same reason it kills ticks. The wood itself is full of natural compounds. They have names like thujone and plicotac acid that small creatures simply cannot tolerate. When an insect or a tick crawls across cedar oil, those compounds disrupt its breathing through the tiny holes in the sides of its body. It dries up. It dies. That is why a cedar chest has kept the moths out of wool blankets for hundreds of years. The moths cannot live in cedar's air. And the same is true of the tick. Now, I want to be honest about something before I sell this any harder, because I have read the scientific papers and I will give you the plain truth. In a laboratory, cedar oil kills and repels ticks at rates of 80 to 90%. Those are real, verified numbers. But in a real backyard, the numbers are far more modest. The field studies done by the disease researchers show cedar oil knocking down only 5 to 25% of ticks in their tests, and giving you maybe a couple of weeks of partial suppression. So I will not stand here and tell you cedar oil clears every tick out of your woods, because it does not. What it does do is drive them away from the spots you treat, kill the ones that come into direct contact with it, and, most important of all for a household with children or pets, it is far, far safer than the chemical sprays. That second part is where the real value lies. Cedar is one tool. The four-method approach I'm about to show you is what makes it work in practice, because each method covers a weakness of the others. Together, they drive the ticks out of the places you actually live and work and walk. The first method is the cedar oil spray you can buy ready to use. There is a brand called Wondercide, and another called Cedarcide, and a few others besides, and all of them are cedar oil mixed with a carrier oil in a spray bottle. You take it out into the yard and you spray the perimeter, the fence line, the edge of the woods, the base of the deck, under the shrubs along the property edge, and you reapply every 2 to 4 weeks through the tick season. A bottle runs about $25 to $30 at any hardware store or Tractor Supply or online, and it covers a few thousand square feet. This is the convenience version. You pay the $30, you point, and you spray. No mixing and no fuss. If you have the money and you would rather not bother mixing your own, this works honestly. Just read the back of the bottle. The only ingredient that matters is cedarwood oil. Everything else is filler. But here is the thing. That cedar oil in the bottle is the active ingredient. And cedar oil itself, the pure essential oil, you can buy for a fraction of the price and mix the very same spray yourself in 3 minutes. Which brings me to the second method. The second method is the $4 homemade spray, which uses the exact same active ingredient. You can buy a 4-ounce bottle of pure cedarwood essential oil, the good kind, the western red cedar kind, for about $10 or $12 online or at a health food store. And that one 4-ounce bottle will make you 16 batches of tick spray, so each batch costs you about $3 or $4 once you count the witch hazel. The recipe is simple, and I will tell it slow. 1 teaspoon of pure cedarwood essential oil. 1 cup of distilled water, not tap water, distilled, because the minerals in tap water keep the oil from mixing right. And 1 tablespoon of witch hazel, which you can buy at any drugstore for a few dollars, or you can use plain vodka if you have it. The witch hazel or the vodka is what they call an emulsifier, and it is the trick that keeps the oil and the water mixed together instead of separating out in the bottle. Without it, the oil just floats to the top and you spray nothing but water. You shake it well before each use, you pour it into any plain spray bottle, and you spray the same places the store-bought version is for: the edge of the woods, the fence line, around the base of the deck, the shrubby corner where the children play. You can spray it on your shoes and the cuffs of your pants before you walk into the high grass. And you can mist it lightly around the dog's outdoor space, not directly on the dog, and I will say much more about that in just a moment. A few honest words on storing it. Keep the bottle in a cool, dark cupboard because sunlight breaks the cedar oil down and weakens it. Reapply every 2 weeks through the worst of the tick season and again after a heavy rain because the rain washes it off, same as the store-bought kind. That is your $3 batch, the same active ingredient as the $30 bottle, 10 times the value for the very same chemistry. Now I have to stop and give you the safety word because this is where most folks make the one mistake that hurts somebody they love, and I will not let you make it. If you have a cat in your household, you must be careful with cedar oil, and you must be even more careful with the chemical tick sprays. A cat is different from a dog. The cat's liver does not have the enzyme that breaks down essential oils the way our livers do, the way a dog's liver does. Cedar oil applied directly to a cat or in a space where a cat is heavily exposed can build up in its body and make it sick. Vomiting, weakness, and in the serious cases, worse. So never spray cedar oil directly on a cat. Never apply it to a cat's bedding or the place where the cat sleeps. And do not spray the inside of your house with it if you keep a cat. For the yard, the outdoor perimeter use we are talking about is generally fine for a cat that passes through it now and then because it is not heavily exposed and the oil dissipates out in the open air. But I would not soak the spot where it likes to nap. And now here is the part that nobody tells you. The chemical tick sprays, the ones with a chemical in them called permethrin, are far more dangerous to a cat than cedar oil ever is. This is not a small thing. Permethrin is what is in most of the popular yard sprays and in many of the dog tick collars, and a cat cannot break it down at all. If a cat walks across a lawn that has just been sprayed with permethrin and then licks its paws, which is the very first thing a cat does, it can have seizures within hours. There are cats sent to the emergency animal hospital every single spring from exactly this. The dog owner does just what the label says, brings the dog inside for the recommended time, and never once thinks about the cat sharing that same grass. So the honest comparison is this. Cedar oil, used with sense, is gentler on a cat than the chemical sprays by a very long way. But an essential oil is still a real chemical, and it deserves respect. Treat the spray bottle the way you would treat any cleaning product. Out of the reach of children, never sprayed on skin without diluting it, and never applied directly to a cat. Used with that ordinary sense, it is a far safer choice than what the lawn care companies will sell you. That is the safety word. Mind it. Now the third method, which is the one that does the most lasting good of all of them. The third method is the cedar chip barrier, and this is the one that pays off for years. The spray you have to reapply every 2 weeks. A cedar chip barrier you lay down once, and it works for 2 to 3 years. Here is the move. You buy real Western red cedar chips, not the cheap dyed mulch from the big box store, which is colored pine and does almost nothing, but actual cedar wood chips, sold by weight at any landscape supply yard. They run $40 to $60 for a cubic yard, and you lay them in a band 3 feet wide and about 3 inches deep along every edge where your yard meets the woods or the fence line or the unmowed area. Every tick crawling out of those leaves and that brush to reach your yard has to cross that band first, and the cedar in the chips is doing its quiet, slow work the whole time, every hour of every day, killing the ones that try to cross and turning the rest of them back. And the research on this is the most encouraging of all of it. Studies done at agricultural experiment stations have shown cedar mulch barriers cutting the tick numbers in the protected zone by a great deal. Some studies better than 80% inside the band, others more modest, but every honest study shows real protection. And the great thing about it is that the chips need no spraying, no mixing, and no attention at all. You lay them down and the cedar does the work for 2 or 3 years, slowly weathering, slowly releasing its oils until you top them up with a fresh layer. And here is the cleverest move of all for the patient man. Call your local tree service. When the trimming crews work, they end up with whole truckloads of wood chips, and cedar chips, when they take down a cedar tree, are a real problem for them to be rid of, because they have to pay the landfill to take them. A great many of those crews will deliver a whole truckload right to your driveway for free if you catch them on the right job day. Some folks have built their entire perimeter for the cost of a 6-pack of soda handed up to the crew on a hot afternoon. So ask. Be friendly about it. The worst they can tell you is that they have nothing on hand today. For a quarter-acre property, you are looking at perhaps $150 in chips bought outright, or free if you ask around, for a barrier that costs nothing to maintain and works for years. That is the forever fix. That is the one I would do first if I had to choose only one. The fourth method is the cleverest of all. It costs 3 cents and it works every single time. I learned this one from a hunter in our community, and the foresters and the field researchers all do it, and you will smile when I tell you. You take an ordinary roll of duct tape, the wide gray kind, the kind in every man's tool drawer in this country, and before you walk into the tall grass or the woods, you wrap a band of it around the top of each sock with the sticky side out. That is it. That is the whole trick. And here is why it works. Ticks climb. They do not fall out of the trees, despite what folks say. They climb up from the ground, up the shoe, up the sock, up the leg, hunting for warm skin. And almost every tick bite in this country happens between the ankle and the waist, because that is the climbing zone. So when a tick grabs onto your boot and starts up your leg, the very first thing it crosses is that sticky band of tape at the top of your sock, and it gets stuck. It does not climb any further. It does not reach your skin. There is no chemistry for it to work its way around. It is simply glued in place. And when you come back to the house, you peel the tape off, fold its sticky side onto itself, and throw it away, ticks and all. You do not even have to look. The tape has them. 3 cents an ankle, works every time, and not one drop of chemical on your skin. This is the one I have my grandchildren do before they run out into the back pasture. They think it is a funny thing. It is also the cheapest and most reliable personal protection I know of. Now I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters. Look at what we have just walked through. 4 methods. Together they cost you almost nothing. A few dollars for a homemade spray batch, $150 or free for a cedar barrier that lasts 3 years. 3 cents an ankle for the duct tape. And together they cover every part of the tick problem. The perimeter, the personal protection, the long-term landscaping, and the convenience when you want it. Now set that against the alternative, the professional tick and mosquito company that knocks on your door in April will charge you $400 to $700 for a season, sometimes more. Their main ingredient is permethrin, the very chemical that puts cats in the emergency room. They will come every 3 weeks and spray your whole lawn. They will tell you to keep the dog inside for 24 hours, and they will never once mention the cat. There is a great deal of money in selling a family a monthly tick treatment contract. There is no money at all in telling a man to buy a $10 bottle of cedar oil that lasts him a season, lay down a band of free cedar chips, and wrap a little duct tape around his socks. So nobody runs a commercial for any of it, and a whole nation comes to believe that the only answer to ticks is the white truck and the $700 contract. It is not. It never has been. The old folks dealt with ticks the same way they dealt with every other pest, by knowing where they lived, by using what actually worked, and by not paying for what they did not need. So here is what I want you to do. This week, do these 3 small things in order. First, buy a small bottle of cedarwood essential oil online, about $12. Mix 1 batch of the spray using the recipe I gave you, store it in a cool, dark cupboard, and walk the edges of your yard with it. Spray the fence line, spray the strip where your lawn meets the wild, spray the shaded corners where the leaves pile up. And if you have a cat, mind the warnings I gave you. Second, look at your property and pick the one spot where the woods or the brush comes closest to where your family walks, and order or ask a tree service for enough cedar chips to lay a 3-foot band along that edge, 3 inches deep, once. That barrier will still be working for you 2 and 3 years from now. And third, buy a roll of duct tape if you do not already have one, and keep it by the back door. And before anyone in your family walks into the tall grass or the woods this season, wrap a band around the top of each sock, sticky side out. A few dollars in your hand for the spray batch, $150 or free for the long-term barrier, 3 cents an ankle for the personal protection. That is your full tick plan, and it is more than most homeowners with a $400 contract are getting. Tell me down in the comments, where do the ticks get bad on your property? The fence line, the woods edge, the dog yard, the children's play area? And if you live in a part of the country where the ticks are at their very worst, the Northeast, the upper Midwest, parts of the South, tell us all how bad it has gotten this year, because the folks just now starting to deal with ticks ought to hear from the folks already in the thick of it. I read every single one. Next time, since we have been speaking of how to keep the small creatures out of where the family lives, I am going to show you the old way my people keep the mice and the rats out of the granary and the home. The simple traps, the doorway tricks, and the small daily habits that mean you never have a mouse problem in the first place. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, mind the edges, lay the chips, and remember that the cheapest line of defense against the smallest enemy is almost always the oldest one.